Today we're here to discuss all the features we would like to see be added in to WWE 2K23's MyGM. Let's jump straight in. So first and foremost, my first thing I'd like to see them do with MyGM and 2K23 is blend together MyGM and MyUniverse in one mode altogether. Again, the big reason I think this could be big for WWE 2K23 blending together MyGM and MyUniverse is where you get to have the customization and the creativity all blended in one mode. Of course, in universe mode, we know that you're able to have your own shows, your own custom shows, custom titles, custom superstars, and play out an entire calendar year and beyond, all in your own universe mode, which gives custom creators and content creators like me a lot of options to have a lot of fun with the sandbox that is there in universe mode. Now, couple together MyGM, where you can have your own GMs and battle against not only one, but 2, 3, 4, however many brands you can think of all in a calendar week. Let's say they maximize it out at 3 brands all doing war in our MyGM Universe mode series. You could decide to play as William Regal here as your GM. You can choose you want to go at SmackDown, and then you can go up against Raw, and not only Raw, but potentially even NXT. And if you want to import your own show into the game, maybe even add AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and so on and so on. So I think the customization, what we could get there with blending together these two modes, could add endless replayability into the MyGM Universe mode, which I think has been needed for Universe for quite some time. Now, my second feature I'd like to see them add in MyGM would be custom brands. So you can see here we're on the screen where you choose your brand in 2K22, and you only have 4 options, with that being, of course, your main line of Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and NXT UK. What I propose and what I would like to see in 2K23's MyGM is you be able to still click between all of the known WWE brands from, of course, NXT, Raw, and SmackDown, but also have the custom brand option available where you can have, again, with your creations that you can import and upload and whatnot and download, you can then import in and download in whatever brand you want, and also giving us an option when we choose what brand we're starting with. If it's custom, we can choose if we're going to be a small indie with the likes of PWG, OVW, or DPW, or you could be a larger indie like ROH and Impact Wrestling, or you could be a large established promotion with the likes of New Japan Pro Wrestling, AEW, and of course, what we already have with WWE. So I think just having that custom brand option, again, adds endless replayability for those that are interested in MyGM's mode, and also letting you decide where you want to start your company from the bottom as a local indie developed league or wrestling promotion, mid-tier or high tier. The options could be endless there, and I think it'd be a big step in the right direction for MyGM moving forward in 2K23. Now, the third key feature I want to see them improve upon is more titles and championships and custom titles and championships in MyGM 2K23. And this is, I think, very simple, and if it's not in next year's game or this year's upcoming game, I will be very disappointed. So again, what we had with 2K22's MyGM, you had your main championships with your men's and women's main primary championship, and of course they added in later with some updates the tag team championships as well for each brand. What I think and what they need to have in 2K23's MyGM is, of course, you can have your main championship, your universal title, your WWE championship, your men's and women's, of course, your SmackDown and Raw women's championships, as well as the tag titles, which were already in 2K22, but they need to add in mid-tier titles, women's tag team championships, which was added in as well. But I think they need to have mid-tier titles for both men and women, which I know doesn't exist for women yet, but with the custom imported titles in, that could add a ton of replayability and, of course, customization. So again, I think we should be able to at least have the IC title, the US title, and then a custom title feature as well added into 2K23, because then, of course, if you, going back to what we had prior, talking about custom brands, if we bring in AEW for say, or even New Japan Pro Wrestling, then you could bring in the custom created by the community titles into MyGM for those brands and have that play throughout your MyGM journey, which I think would be amazing for me as a content creator, as a fan of wrestling in general. Having more titles on the card would just be It'd be bigger, it'd be better. So touching on and talking about our fourth topic here, again, more of everything. I want to see more money for your starting brands, more rosters, more roster space, longer seasons, and more match types. So first and foremost, coupling with what we just talked about with the championships, of course, we know the larger your promotion, the more championships particularly you will have. So I think the larger your promotion, the more starting cash you should start with. You can see the budget there on the top right there. That's not very much for SmackDown, in my opinion. Being a huge promotion, they should be starting with more money, which means they could have a larger roster. As you can see, this is the full roster here for SmackDown, which is very, very thin. You have all your free agents you can sign, you have all your legends you can go sign as well. But I do believe the larger your promotion, the more space you should have on your roster, the more starting cash you should have as well, because then you can fill all of your title and championship spots as well. Now, the smaller your promotion, the less money maybe you have, but you're going to have a lot less and less inexpensive superstars that you're signing as well. So a smaller roster, more inexpensive as well, which I think would just be, it makes sense. The smaller you are, the less money you really have for your promotion, the less money all your superstars will cost. That doesn't mean they're any worse than anybody else. That just means their name is not yet established, which we'll get into that in just a moment. Now, the big one for me, again, calendar year, I would like the calendar year to stretch from Raw after Mania all the way through the WrestleMania season, but I would like for them to stretch it to 2, 3, 4, and even 5 years in MyGM. I don't think it necessarily needs to be endless, but I would like to see them stretch out the calendar year, into multiple years instead of just 1 year, or, they have 15 weeks up to 50 weeks. I think they need to stretch it and make it a lot longer for more replayability. And then the big one that would bring more replayability into this would be more match types in general. Here's what we have with match rules in this game. We have one-on-one, tag team, and that's it. You don't have triple threats, fatal four-ways, elimination chambers, royal rumbles, six-man tags, none of it. None of that exists in MyGM, and that is problematic. They need to add in more match rules into 2K23. Speaking of which, for each mode, the match types are also very, very limited. You have your normal rules, you have your tables match, your extreme rules match, your TLCs, and your Hell in a Cell. That is it. Per match, that's all you get. So I do like that they have cost and stamina costs per match you're doing. Keep that. I think that's great. Develop that out even further. But I do think you need to have other types of matches, whether that be a submission only match, an Iron Man match. You need to have your Royal Rumble matches and all of that. I mean, all the matches that you actually have already in the game, there's no reason those shouldn't already be in MyGM. So I think that is something they definitely have to step it up, add more match rules, add all the match types in there. And I think the MyGM will just be a huge, huge mode, especially if they do what I said about blending together that with my universe, which leads us to our fifth and final point, which I think could set this above and beyond what we had last year. And that is get rid of the synergy system and make playing matches in game actually viable for your MyGM. So what I mean by this is, if you're looking at your roster here, you know that every single character on your roster has a particular synergy. You got Becky Lynch here. She is a class specialist. You have John Cena, who is a bruiser. You have Johnny Gargano, who's a specialist, and so forth. You have fighters, you have giants, you have cruiserweights. And the way that MyGM worked in last year's game was you had kind of a rock, paper, scissors style thing where your bruisers had a good synergy with fighters. So you could have John Cena versus Roderick Strong, and that would be a match that could potentially be big depending on their popularity. And that is the other key component. Now, I think it's ridiculous that in this game that you can't put John Cena in a match with, let's say, let me look down the roster here. So let's say you have John Cena, who's a bruiser, and then I go over here to free agents and I find another bruiser. Let's say it could be Legends here. John Cena versus Batista. You're telling me that wouldn't be a big match? That couldn't be huge? Okay, that's ridiculous. And they won't work in 2K22 because they are both bruisers and they're both faces. They pay attention to their alignment. Are they a heel? Are they a face? Are they a bruiser? Are they what are they? And I think that's ridiculous. Same thing here. If I had Kane taking on let's say Kane taking on potentially, let's say, Ultimate Warrior, or, you know, even Batista. Kane versus Batista wouldn't perform well because Kane is a giant, Batista's a bruiser. That means Batista has to take on fighters. That means Kane has to take on cruiserweights, and otherwise the match may fall flat. And I think they got to get rid of this system, and it's already all in the game. The fix is already here. And let's take a look at this. So each of your characters in 2K22 or 2K23 already has statistics. And you can see here in MyGM, you have your class, your role, your popularity, your stamina, morale, promo skill. Keep all of that. Keep all of that. I think that's tremendous. But build upon it, because Shawn Michaels in the game has a rating out of 0 to 99. And that tells you how good they are at grappling, strikes, submission, this, that, and the other. I think build that into MyGM. Get rid of the class system. I think really just get rid of the class system. And instead, what you're really going to be looking upon to build good matches is you're going to be looking at, okay, are they a heel or a face? That should be important. Yes. But the big thing then would be popularity. How popular are these stars? And also, how do they do in certain types of matches, match specialties? How good are they with charisma or promo skills? How good, I think they should even add in an element there with how good are they at storytelling in matches. And I think that could be huge. So I think get rid of your class systems, really take off the handcuffs that are in this mode, and let us have creative, really creative freedom, and be able to really pay attention to each superstar's popularity, charisma, their individual statistics, and you're going to get a lot more out of your roster in MyGM instead of feeling like you have to do the same matches against people that you really just don't care to put in programs for week after week after week, and it gets a little tiresome at times, to be honest with you. The next big component of this is, okay, if I'm going to go ahead and auto book out this show, you can see here they've already put in, you have your specialists and your giants and your cruiserweights. You already see they have the synergies here built out to give you the best possible match they can. But if you go in here, you can play the matches if you want, you can watch the matches if you want, but it doesn't have any outcome or change on the star rating. You could go through and play Jinder Mahal versus Kyle O'Reilly, and you could put on a 5-star banger, but that's not going to make it a 5-star match in the eyes of what you have against your opponents. So if I go in here and simulate through, you're seeing this here, I can simulate all of these. I can spectate, simulate, play, but no matter what I do, and just for the sake of saving time, it's in your best interest to simulate. It's absolutely in your best interest to simulate, because playing the matches and spectating the matches has no change of your outcome when it comes to your star value of your drama curve. So I do think in 2K23, for the best bang for your buck, they need to make sure that if you actually put in the time to go play your matches, that how you perform this match, if you're putting on some humongous spots, if you're having a really good specialist type of match, that should impact the star rating of the performance, and also could impact the ratings that you have going forward. So if you actually put in the time to play, you could potentially put on some banger matches and have tremendous star ratings here. As you can see, what we had on there, this match here did really poorly. All these did pretty poorly versus what you had. They had a Hell in a Cell match, and it was a synergy match, so they ended up putting on a really good match. This is for a title, put on a really good match. So I think the focus is on the wrong things and what brings you performance in 2K22. I think it's all focused on synergies in 2K22. It's focused on match types. It's focused on if it's for a title or not. And it's focused on their popularity as the superstar, instead of, who's got good popularity, who's got good charisma, who's good at certain types of matches. Put those people in matches and programs together, perform well in person playing them, CPU versus CPU spectate, or even player versus CPU, and put on the best possible matches to get the best possible drama curve and star rating. I think that would be it makes sense. So yeah, that's all I have. I have 5 points there of what would make, I think, Universe mode and MyGM blended together be a huge mode in 2K23. Y'all let me know your thoughts down below, and keep it tuned here for all things WWE 2K23 and wrestling gaming news as we lead up to launch, coming potentially this March. We'll have to keep an eye on it. WrestleMania and WrestleMania season's around the corner. Royal Rumble with the news is coming soon, and we'll have it for you here. But stay safe and game on.